Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Okay, now I know I'm in Canada, but nonetheless I just want to talk a little bit about an event that's coming up at London's BFI on the South Bank next month, September 2024. There's going to be a selection of films being screened which have been sort of curated, if you like, by Martin Scorsese of hidden gems of British cinema. There's going to be 22 films that are going to be shown. Now this originates back to actually during lockdown, and I remember listening to this podcast, the Empire Film Podcast. If you go back and look back through their archives to the podcast that they did in February 2021, they had a discussion then with Edgar Wright and Quentin Tarantino. And at that time, Martin Scorsese had sent to them a list of hidden gems from British cinema, and they were working their way through them. Some of these films were unknown to them. So they had a really good discussion in that Empire Film Podcast about those. Edgar Wright is now associated with the BFI, and so it seems he's now had this opportunity to present a curated list of some of the films that were talked about. So like I say, 22 titles that are going to be coming up, but I just want to talk about just a few of my favourites, if you like, or ones that I have on physical media. I'll show you at the end of the video the whole 22 films that are going to be shown, and obviously I'll give you a link as well in the description so that you can look it up yourself. Anyway, here we go. So one film we have is The Mindbenders, and this is directed by Basil Dearden. Certainly talked about Basil Dearden a few times on my channel, and this one stars Dirk Bogarde. It's quite a curious one, this, about sensory deprivation. Unusual drama, definitely will be worth watching. Dr. Jackal and Sister Hyde. This is a great Hammer movie directed by Roy Ward Baker, and it stars Ralph Bates and Martine Bezic. Edgar Wright was particularly influenced by this one because of its use of mirrors. This is a sort of psychosexual spin on the tale of Jackal and Hyde. But yeah, very good use of mirrors in this, and he took note of that for when he made Last Night in Soho. But yeah, great movie. It Always Rains on Sunday from 1947. This one's directed by Robert Hamer, and that's another director I've talked about on my channel. I talked about the films of Robert Hamer before, but yeah, this is a great movie. Cinematography on this one by the great Douglas Slocum, and I'll mention him again shortly. And this one stars Googie Withers, really great performance from her. And it's notable really for being set in London's East End, and kind of being the origins, if you like, of a series that came later, such as EastEnders. So you've got all these sort of East End of London dramas going on, and a crime story that's involved as well. Yeah, great movie. Next we've got The Pumpkin Eater from 1964, and this one's directed by Jack Clayton, who also directed The Innocents. Yeah, great cast here. Anne Bancroft is excellent in this, and we've also got Peter Finch, James Mason. Quite an unusual drama about a woman who's come out of a couple of failed relationships, but with a number of children in tow, and she gets involved with Peter Finch, but their relationship doesn't really go from strength to strength either. Yeah, unusual, not particularly sympathetic characters, but hugely cinematic film, this one, with great cinematography by Oswald Morris, a cinematographer who's worked on all types of films, including Stanley Kubrick's Lolita, Fiddler on the Roof, Oliver, The Man Who Would Be King, etc. Great movie. And then from 1973, we've got The Legend of Hell House, and this is directed by John Hoff, another director who I'm particularly interested in. He did a film from 1970 that starred Susan George called Eyewitness, which I'm quite keen on, as well as doing Hammer films such as Twins of Evil, and also films such as Escape to Witch Mountain, Return from Witch Mountain, and The Watcher in the Woods. But yeah, this is a really atmospheric film. I wouldn't say it was particularly scary as such, but just great atmosphere to it, involving psychic investigators going to stay in a house to see if it's haunted. Great cast that includes Roddy McDowall and Pamela Franklin, an actress who I like, who was in one of my other favourite films, And Soon the Darkness. Green for Danger from 1946, directed by Sidney Gilliat and starring Alistair Sim and Trevor Howard. This is a really good fun one, this. A sort of set during the Second World War in a rural hospital. It's a kind of whodunit, but yeah, really entertaining and absolutely fantastic performance from Alistair Sim. Next is To the Public Danger from 1948, directed by Terence Fisher, a director who did a number of Hammer films. This is quite an unusual one. It's only 45 minutes long and it's adapted from a radio play. Really, it's a morality tale about the perils of drink driving. It's got some interesting cinematography in it. Adapted from a radio play. It's got Roy Plumley in the cast, and he's a terrible actor, but thankfully he's not in it too much. The rest of the cast are good. Quite an interesting one. And then also from Terence Fisher from 1952, they're showing Stolen Face. This is really good fun. So this one involves Paul Henreid as a plastic surgeon who, whilst he's on vacation, he sees a beautiful concert pianist who's played by Elizabeth Scott, and he really falls for her, except she's already promised to marry Andre Morel. And so upset, he returns home and decides to get a disfigured ex-con played by Mary McKenzie and give her plastic surgery to make her look like Elizabeth Scott, and then he can marry her. Except looks are one thing, but her behaviour and attitude are another. This is a really entertaining one, absolutely ridiculous, but just good fun. Next, from 1962, another interesting one. This one's directed by Joseph Losey, and it stars Shirley Ann Field, MacDonald Carey, and Oliver Reed as well. I won't say too much about this. It starts off in the Dorset coast, a bit of hijinks going on, and attempts to con an American tourist. But then it leads on from there with some of the group making way on a boat, and then finding off the Dorset coast this secret base, government base, where children are being kept and educated, and they seem to be radioactive. But yeah, a really unusual film, this one, definitely worth seeing. Next, from 1960, it's a film I watched just the other day. Absolutely loved it. The Flesh and the Fiends. And this one's directed by John Gilling, who's done a few Hammer films, including The Reptile and The Plague of the Zombies. Great movie, this. It's got Peter Cushing in it, and Donald Pleasance, and Billy Whitelaw. And it concerns Burke and Hare, the infamous grave robbers and murderers who would dig up bodies or murder people so that they could present the bodies to a scientist so that he could do his scientific experiments. Peter Cushing plays the scientist Dr. Robert Knox in this one. I wouldn't say it's hugely scary, this one. It's filmed in black and white, but it's great atmosphere to it, and absolutely fantastic cinematography by Monty Berman, who is a cinematographer who's done another film that I really enjoy, The Crawling Eye, and he also worked on Michael Powell's excellent The Edge of the World. Next, we've got Yield to the Night, really good one this, directed by J. Lee Thompson. J. Lee Thompson's film Northwest Frontier was the first film I ever saw at the cinema. Great drama this. Diana Dawes gets to have really the best dramatic role of her career, and this is loosely based on the story of Ruth Ellis, the last woman to be hanged in England, and her story was certainly told really well in this film, Dance with a Stranger, with Miranda Richardson playing the role there. Great movie this, definitely worth seeing. Next we've got this one, Guns at Batazi, directed by John Gilliman, certainly a director I've talked about a lot on my channel, and I have pretty much his entire filmography. This is a great one. Now, on the Empire Film podcast, this one particularly blew Quentin Tarantino away because he wasn't particularly a fan of Richard Attenborough as an actor up until this point, but seeing his performance in this really, really impressed him. And understandably, in this film, Richard Attenborough plays a really sort of stuffy, by-the-book sergeant major, and he's ridiculed by all his troops, except a coup then happens at their army base, and it's his discipline that really brings everyone into action and helps save the day. This is a really fantastic one, and again we've got the great cinematographer Douglas Slocum, so this is all filmed in black and white CinemaScope. Looks really, really impressive. It'll look great on the big screen. And then finally, definitely have to mention this one, Went the Day Well from 1942, directed by Alberto Cavalcanti. Absolutely love this film. It's a really sort of gripping one, if you like. So a fictional kind of thing set during World War II that involves Germans finding their way into a British town, pretending to be English, and the villagers gradually realizing what's going on and realizing that they are going to have to fight back. So yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff, this one. Definitely worth seeing. Okay, I didn't want to make this a long video, so I've just rushed through some of those. I'll give you a list here of the films that are going to be showing, all 22 films that are going to be showing in this festival in September 2024. I'll put a link below so that you can go to the BFI site and just look it up yourself if you like. I'm not sponsored or have no association with any of this. I just think it's good fun. Like I say, that Empire Film podcast from February 2021 is definitely worth a listen, so you can hear them talk about these films as well as quite a few other ones as well. It was a 3-hour conversation that they had, but yeah, good fun. Okay, thanks very much for joining me on this. Let me know your comments on any of those films, or indeed any of the other ones that I've just listed here, which I haven't mentioned. There's certainly some good ones, including David Lean's This Happy Breed, and an early Ealing film as well, Hue and Cry. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on any of these, and please do join me again for some more videos. Hope to see you. Thanks very much. All the best. Bye-bye.